joined us today for the fourth and last digital youth mobility lab, which is part of our series of MOVIT online events on youth mobility in a digital era. And this is organized by Erasmus Plus National Agency in Germany, JUGEND for Europa, together with International Youth Service of Federal Republic of Germany, IAP, Estonian Youth Work Center, and TK, Werke, which is the Center of Expertise for Digital Youth Work, and Finnish National Agency for Education. Today we have something new and maybe different prepared for you. So I would like to show you the day's agenda, which we will start as usually with a short introduction of, we still don't see the agenda, but I'm sure that this will happen soon. So we will start with an introduction and overview of who is here in the room and what questions maybe you also have for today's panel discussion, because we have 5 speakers from different national agencies and European Commission who will share their experiences and also how was their response, particularly in the last couple of months, but also looking into future on how programs for youth on the EU level could be developed further and what are the needs here in the community. So for that we have Reet from Estonian National Agency, Manfred von HEBEL from German National Agency, Guoda from Lithuanian National Agency, Uroš from Slovenian National Agency, and Flor, who is the head of youth unit in the European Commission. And after the opening statements, we'll already have the chance to ask first questions of comprehension maybe, and for that please use the chat particularly, so we can also put those questions into our moderation. And then we would like to give you the chance also to talk with each other, with other participants, but accompanied by the speakers in smaller whisper groups, so in breakout groups for some 20 minutes, where you will have the chance to also talk about your own experiences. You're all coming from different program countries, and there might be that your national agencies have been experiencing a different situation, or maybe there have been also some interesting experiences to share, and also to talk about what do we really need and what we should think about in the nearest future, because the next generation of youth programs is being developed as we speak. And when we come back to the main room, we will have further discussion with speakers, with our 5 speakers who joined us here today. And we are planning to finish around 4 o'clock Central European time. So this is something that we have prepared for you. And there are also some questions that we would like you to ask about where you are at the moment, and what questions do you have prepared for those 5 speakers? Sabrina.
Exactly. Therefore, we share with you some slides and ask you please to go on menti.com, and there will be a code to put in, which is 587866. And you will see the first question. We would like to know who is here actually. So you, in which city area are you at the moment? Great, we already see Amsterdam, quite big, Cologne, Banja Luka, we see Oslo, Tallinn, Reggio Calabria, very nice, Prenzlauer Berg, which is even a very small part here in Berlin, Zagreb, Ulu, Hong Kong, Uckermark, we see Bonn, we see Frankfurt, Thessaloniki, we see Ljubljana, Lübeck, Abruzzo, Torino. There's a place I cannot read, Jyväskylä, maybe? There is Vilnius, Brussels, I can see Grafschaft. There is Floto, Rhineland, Helsinki. Very nice. Not everybody has written it in yet. Maybe wait a bit longer. There's Novi Sad. A few people coming from, because it's quite big. Torino also, Königswinter, Milan, I see as a new one, Belfast, Sardinia, Slovenia, Maribor. Great, I think we are quite a diverse group here. And what is also interesting for today's discussion is what is actually your background, professionally wise mostly. So what defines your best? Are you defining yourself more as a youth worker, as a trainer, or a youth leader, a youth project manager, or a policy or decision maker, a volunteering mentor, a researcher, or something else, any other? So we see we have quite a lot youth project managers today. Trainers are also quite present. Youth worker. Today also some policy and decision maker more than the other labs we did. 2 youth leaders. Great. Wait a moment longer, not changing anything. That this is getting an idea what kind of people are here. And one last one. As we are always asking you this, what is the question you have for today? So what are you bringing with you today and would like to discuss about it or get an answer? Or yeah, even more questions sometimes. How to move forward? Yes. How is gonna be the future? I think there is another closing event coming on Wednesday where we definitely have a bigger, more view on that also. So just if you're interested in the future, I think that's also a moment you could join on Wednesday. Now what? I think that means the situation we are in, what next, how to make digital youth work a success, online mobility and how to fund it. Then somebody is interested in money. Projects in the nearest future. We have youth strategies for forward. Some people are of course interested in the new program. It's a question if we have these answers already. Will digital work be considered and will it have its own budget is one question. What is the new normal? Who supports online youth exchanges financially? Can virtual activities be funded? Quite concrete questions. Next program. What could be different next year? This is why we are here. We actually want to find this out with you. How to get recognized digital youth work. New inspiration also. Somebody wants to know if Daniel G is a single. Interesting, maybe not the right place here, but let's see. How will online and physical mobilities be supported equally or not? Yeah, so I think some questions are quite concrete on how is it going. I think we are also here today on finding out what is actually needed, what was the fast development in the last months. Nobody expected this so fast and we all have to kind of deal with it and react on it. So this is why we will also have the groups today, the bespoke groups. Great. Thanks a lot for sharing your questions. And well, we also have some more people here apart from the speakers and Evaldis and me.
There are also some people who are making this happen, and particularly for those who have a more visual mind, help to understand all those different ideas and sometimes quite complicated concepts. And this is Agne Ropalaite from Visual Mind LT, who is our graphic facilitator and recorder.
Hello everyone from Vilnius, happy to be here.
Hi Agne. And it would be much harder for all of us here to have a constructive and structured communication without our master of Zoom, who is Ricarda Mochilnik from verdedigital.at.
Hello from Austria. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, and I think that's already the moment where we kind of start into our opening statements by the speakers. And just to let you know, most of you are probably quite familiar with Zoom because I see some familiar faces here too. But you're very much invited to use the chat, which you have this black bar in the lower part of your screen, and there's written chat. So if you click on it, please follow what's written there, and also send your questions. In the meanwhile, they will be collected and not got lost, so we can later on take them into account, yeah? Great, and there's also, if you click on participants, that's for a bit later. If you have anything, you can also raise the blue hand. That's it for now, I think, and we will start with Reet, who is the head of the Archimedes Foundation Youth Agency, which is the Estonian national agency for the EU programs Erasmus Plus Youth in Action and European Solidarity Corps, plus the SALTO Resource Center for Participation and Information. And she is already a while, I think quite a while at the Estonian NA, as some of you know. And my first question to you, Reet, is has this been the most exciting or challenging year so far for you?
Definitely challenging. Hi to everybody from me, from my home, from Tallinn, Estonia. It's been definitely not exciting in this meaning of the word. For me, exciting really is more of a positive connotation word, and of course, there is a lot in this situation where we can learn from, and in this way we can say that it's been also exciting times. Also, experimenting a lot can mean excitement, but I would say it was definitely so far a caught by surprise year, and also accelerated learning year, maybe mostly. Because it's been a lot of learning at the personal level, at the team level, and also at organizational and network level. And I think this is something that will remind me of this 2020 for a very long time, and I'm sure all of us. So in terms of personal learning, obviously me, as all of you, I'm sure, had to learn a lot about myself in this way of working, where you don't really see your colleagues face to face. You don't gather in the meeting rooms. You don't chat with each other in the corridors of the team. You don't get to meet your dear colleagues from abroad. But everything really had to take place in a good, organized manner in the virtual spaces. So I think it was a big adjustment to many of us, not maybe so much to me personally, but still exploring new spaces, new methods, what works, what doesn't work, or how much is too much, also in terms of tools that you can have in your menu, and with everybody then coming with their own wishes and proposals, and then you still need to make the decisions together as a team and at personal level. So what works for you? So also voicing out these needs that you have. At the team level, it was really a big challenge, I would say, because we had a couple of newcomers in the team just before the COVID started. So some of the team members hadn't ever worked in the office together with the others. So it's also the way you then adjust people to the team and try to make things work so that they feel still welcome, still part of the team, getting to know the job and getting to know the team. At organizational level, I would say we were quite well prepared. In Estonia, we are rather paperless national agency. So in terms of communication, contracting, all kinds of administrative work that is very digitally organized already. So we didn't have much fuss there. Obviously, we had to readjust our communication channels with the beneficiaries and the target groups, because we still wanted to have the programs fully running and also the SALTO fully running the work that we had aimed to do in 2020. And having quite ambitious work plans, of course, we needed to look what can still be done and where we need to adjust what is possible online and what is not any more possible, that should be then postponed to a later phase of this year or even next year. And I think what I've personally learned from the organization and the network of national agencies, youth national agencies have always been a strong network, but I think what we have done is become even a stronger network of national agencies, because there was a lot of learning from each other. There was a need for learning from each other, also working out solutions together as organization, as a network that has the same aims, purpose, and the tools or the instruments. So I think there also much more communication, much more exchange, much more peer support, peer learning took place. So I'm very, very happy about that. So I really, truly hope that we can keep the things that we have learned that work much better the way we solve them now, that we will not let go of the great things that we actually did discover. Also the way we communicate with the beneficiaries and the target groups, there is a lot of more accessibility to the program sometimes. If you have other ways of contacting and contact making with the target groups, and we have seen as a result of that a huge increase of applications actually for the second round, and very interesting discoveries also in the content of these projects, because they are very relevant to the times we are living now, and also very much to do with smart youth work, digitalization, and also the risks that it brings along. So I'm definitely excited about what it made us discover as a network, as an organization, as myself, but still quite shocked by being caught by surprise and now navigating the change. I think it will be a joint effort. Definitely it will need to be a joint effort from beneficiaries now that we will slowly be restarting the mobilities and everything. And there are obviously dangers and risks and fears involved, and now we just have to be brave together and take the first steps cautiously with the learning in mind that we took from it.
Thank you, Reet. And let's have a look also at other NAs. We will come back also to you. There are some questions coming in the chat. So now let's go south from Estonia, and let's have a look at the German NA, Jugend für Europa. Manfred von HEBEL, Deputy Head of the NA. So Manfred, what is the status quo of the Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Corps projects in Germany?
Yeah, thank you, Valdas, and hi everybody from Bonn as well. First of all, let me thank you for having the opportunity to contribute to this event, and thank you also to all the organizers of this event. I'm really happy when I see that we have again more than 90 participants. This was really such a good idea to change this conference from a physical conference into this virtual event now with 7 elements that was running for the last 2 weeks, and I'm really grateful, and a big applause to everyone who helped organizing that. That really was a good thing to do. Yeah, nice question about the current status of the project. It's actually very difficult to get a good overview still now after a couple of months. We only mostly we are only able to have a kind of a short image, an impression, or just an instant picture of the situation of the project. I think there has been, as Reet already said, there had been an awfully lot of learning in the last month, and we experienced a lot of creativity at the level of the beneficiaries at the projects, but also at our own level, when it comes to the network that Reet also said already. We saw an incredible job that all our colleagues in the national agencies did in the last month to come up with a coherent answer to the situation, which caught us at a very strange moment in a lot of changes that we are facing, and now we had to come up with completely different answers to a situation which is really contradicting mobility. A global virus is really contradicting mobility programs, so you have to come up with good solutions. Many beneficiaries were and are in quite precarious situations, so it was also important to not make their situation even worse. I think it was really a good answer, or mostly good answers that we could give, to have a coherent approach with giving beneficiaries a lot of flexibility to interrupt their projects, to prolong their projects, to change activities into virtual exchanges, blended learning, use a lot of digital tools. Also in terms of the Solidarity Corps, I think it was very important to have the opportunity to find alternative ways to complete your voluntary activities. So we saw a lot of things going on, and I'm sure that we need some time to reflect upon this, to evaluate these things. Ray has just started an impact evaluation, so at some point we will have a more coherent picture and a better overview of the situations. But for now, as Reet said, it is quite impressive, and it was really a surprise for us to see round two, application round 2 at the beginning of May. We were very skeptical, pessimistic, what would happen, will there be any mobility going on, but we saw one of the strongest application rounds in terms of quantity, and Reet already said also in terms of quality. Again, we see the youth field has a very good sense of the situation of changes in society. Many projects take up the virus issue, try to find answers, try to organize alternative ways. So that is really an impressive thing to do, and it's really, for us, it was really a very optimistic signal also to continue with this program, to see also that we have opportunities with virtual activities, but also having the feedback that virtual activities is a good thing to do. But the core element of our programs is really physical encounter, is really intercultural learning by meeting people. And this is something where we have to go back to. Yeah, maybe that's for the moment. Maybe some other questions, some other answers I can give later. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Manfred, for the insights from your perspective. And there's several questions coming in. We will take them into account for sure. But first, we continue with our opening statements, and we have invited also another perspective on that from Lithuania, and this is Guoda LOMANAITԸ. I always have to practice a bit, and she is the head of the Lithuanian National Agency for youth, for the programs Youth in Action and European Solidarity Corps. And I also have a question for you, Guoda, which is, what is the most asked question from beneficiaries at your agency right now?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Sabrina. Thank you so much for having me as well. I think there's also a little bit, we're getting a taste of in the Menti and also in the chat. And I can tell you that from my perspective, I think there's two big categories. First category is, what do we do now? So how do we cope? What are the modalities? How can we continue? You know, what are the rules, and if the rules are changing, if anything? And the second big category, I think, so is when can we do it again? And if we do that through regular means and the way that we used to do, or if we do it through some sort of new formats, and what does that entail? So I think that, you know, many questions that were coming to NAs, but as well, I think we were maybe the second least. I think everyone was really approaching the Commission, and maybe Flora will reflect a bit on that. But surely we have to realize that some questions we can answer quite quickly and without delay, and some questions we really need to see what we can do, because we are also not on our own in a way. And as Reet and Manfred were saying, there was a lot of attempt in coordinating approaches, and also waiting for things to be sort of allowed a bit, because a lot of the questions are not operational. They are strategic, and they're also program level that is much higher than individual NAs. So I think that indeed questions have been many, and answers maybe not as many as we would have liked, but at least we tried our best to do what we can in the given framework. So yeah, there was lots of answering and lots of thinking about different things.
Thank you, Guoda. And we now switch even more south to Uroš SKRINAR, who is head of Slovenian National Agency of Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Corps. So Uroš, what was your aha moment or the biggest learning moment during recent time?
Yeah, hello also from Slovenia, Ljubljana. Nice to be with you, with a so big number of different nationalities and everyone around, what is also something that Erasmus and Solidarity Corps stand for. And that was also seen, what also Reet, Manfred and Guoda said, in our network of youth NAs, how we actually tried to face all the challenges that were coming day by day to us. We were also not prepared, yeah? So we also need to know that also NAs were faced with loads of difficulties and questions and challenges. But for me, the aha moment was that it is good to think ahead. And saying for my NA, we started digitalization a few years ago. So basically, we were also quite equipped with technical things and all the things that were needed. But of course, the circumstances were so different and so challenging that we also needed to adapt. And that took time. But the aha moment was that it is not always only good to talk about digitalization and digital work, youth work, but we also need to do it. We need to go ahead with it. We talked a lot about it, but seeing also in the perspective of youth sector in Slovenia, doing the analysis and surveys, we saw that we are not there yet, so that we still have a lot to do. Saying that, at the same time, although now you will be a little bit laughing, I was actually very happy that we have enormous IT tools for Erasmus Plus and Solidarity Corps. We know that we had a lot of challenges, we had a lot of problems with them, but nevertheless, they actually allowed us, and we used them to basically run our work, do the projects, support the beneficiaries, applicants, to actually do the projects, to do the implementation of the projects, or actually to try to solve the challenges that there were. So that was also one good benefit and one aha moment. And we know that we have challenges with IT tools for Erasmus and Solidarity Corps. But at this time, they were really helpful. Yeah. So that was one aha moment.
Thanks a lot, Uroš, for your aha moment. And we have one more guest on stage, and this is Flora van Hout. She is working at the head of the Unit Youth, Volunteer Solidarity and Traineeships Office of the European Commission. And we also have a question for you. How EU youth programs and their beneficiaries have reacted to the current situation in general? Welcome, Flo.
Yes, good question. And I think some of the elements have already been mentioned by previous speakers. And I was nodding because I very much recognized the feelings that others said when this crisis started. Our main concern and our first concern was what would happen to the projects that were ongoing, because people were all over in Europe, maybe not at their homes, in a difficult situations. So this was our first concern. How can we assist, and how can our programs continue to work in spite of the circumstances, and also to allow for project organizations to somehow continue the work that they had started with good hopes to continue. And I think almost overnight, all of us had to adapt. And indeed, we had to do this, which is, of course, a huge challenge, while also for the first time ever to all work from home. So again, like was said, we were happy to discover that the Commission's IT allowed us actually to continue work in quite a good way among colleagues with national agencies, which has been really a lifesaver for all of us. Now, the first concern was to keep the projects going. So the big messages were ensure flexibility, allow projects to postpone activities, to adapt budget, to bring in more virtual or online activities, etc. So this has been the immediate worry, to ensure that whatever was ongoing could continue. Now, of course, at the same time, and maybe not immediately, but perhaps after 5 or 6 weeks or so, we have also started to think about the more long term. Because in the beginning, it's all crisis management, and the main worry was to ensure that the NAs had the information, how they could support all the beneficiaries, that there was some information on our website, etc. And once that was in place, and also when we discovered different online tools, and actually how easy it is to still be in touch, even in a less pleasant or maybe a way that is limitative in some way, we also started to see, what does this mean for the future? And it is clear that Erasmus Plus or the European Solidarity Corps are programs that are very much based on personal encounters and personal contacts. However, of course, whatever we think of it, we will not go back to the past. And digital youth work was already on our agenda before the coronavirus changed our world. But I think we have been a pressure cooker, that we have learned a lot more about what it can and cannot do than we thought. And also to understand that this, we have to somehow get to grips how digital can influence youth work in a positive way. So there are a lot of aspects. How do you do it? What are the tools? What can it be used for? What is it not good for? If you have no choice, what are the methodologies that you would want to apply to make this work? Because there's one thing to try and continue projects because you have to, but in the future we have to also, hopefully we go back to a possibility of traveling and meeting again. But the digital will be there to stay, and we have to see how we can best make use of it. So this is something we are thinking about, and what it will be the biggest challenge, saying what are the needs of youth workers on the ground, in order, what information do we need to give, and how can we support that? And the other side, we see there is already a lot of discussion about digital happening, and then our challenge is, how can we make all that information available that youth workers can find it easily? So there's a lot of questions still ahead of us that we need to take on our shoulders to ensure that the next programming period can have a flying start, and start putting these ideas to practice.
Indeed, those questions are also already coming in, and we would like now to, since we have some time saved, we would like to open up the first round of questions before we go into breakouts and into our later final discussion. Reet, there was a question, since you have started, we will give you also the first question. Francesco was asking, because you were mentioning also the network of national agencies, and he was wondering whether you have been developing or discussing some particular guidelines for approved projects or new ones when it comes particularly now to the question, so how do we work with the residential activities that cannot take place?
What I can definitely say is that each national agency has been sorting out all the questions that are coming in with the projects that we had already financed last year that had not yet taken place, and also in the first round, those that were granted. And then there were this hesitation of what could be done in the second round already, since we had also the second round during the pandemic. There has been proposals sent to the Commission. There has been quite an active webinar exchange between the Commission and national agencies to guide each other also of what kind of questions we get from the ground, from the beneficiaries, from the applicants, from the target groups that were in the middle of the pandemic also, because we have volunteers all across Europe, and we had to also find ways how to help them based on their decisions or their organizational capacity, which kind of support they had or did not have. So every national agencies had a very, I mean, to a certain extent, similar circumstances, but at the same time quite different because of the projects and the applicants that they were concerned with. So I think there was a very rich exchange. There were proposals from the national agencies. There was discussion, maybe not too much discussion yet on the blended mobility, because that is something very high up in the possible scenarios for the future, also going more into looking at what is quality learning, how can it be done in a blended manner. And these kind of guidelines and discussions, I think, in my opinion, still need to take place, because we have not yet had, we only got the guidelines how to, in a project management basis, do it, but going into the quality of learning and how this can happen, meanwhile using different ways of learning, that is still something that we need to take on together as national agencies, also having dialogue with the beneficiaries and then also with the Commission.
I would just follow up on that and take two other questions in, maybe even three. There were to Manfred, maybe if you want to answer. One is, since you also mentioned this high quantity and also quality of projects who applied this round, what is if they also have to transfer? Is there any already plan or procedure you could follow? Or even first step into this, how to create guidelines and standards, which, yeah, what could be the basis, actually? Manfred, if you want.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, first of all, it has been an interesting signal. As I said already, we have been there were quite different assumptions of what would happen for round two, so we were caught by surprise by this. I think it was also next to the optimism that was expressed by this, it has also been a sign of that people are more focusing on mobility, maybe even had a little bit more time to prepare particular more complex project in Key Action 2. First of all, I would not hope that we have to go back to a complete lockdown, but we never know. So we would assume that projects can start taking place again after the summer break or after the time we have accepted them for funding, and they will be able to take place. If not, then we have to start thinking differently, of course, and we have to see how flexible also projects in the next round can be treated. I mean, this is if we the more we have to go back to certain restrictions, the better we have to react. I think we have made a lot of experience now. We have heard that, we learned a lot. We have to evaluate this learning. We have to find good solutions. We are in a current discussion with the Commission. DNA's made some proposals on how we need to deal with also virtual activities, how to treat blended mobilities. There is, of course, a question of how do we fund virtual activities in comparison to physical activities. Of course, you have to make a distinction at some point, but where's the limit? What are the unit costs in the particular cases? All this has to be solved. That's not an easy question. That's not only a question for the youth field, it has to be also discussed in the framework of the whole program. So this is something what I would consider at the moment as an ongoing process, and I hope we will come up with a solution that that beneficiaries can live with, and that can also open the door for the implementation in the new program. So this is a bit like we have to deal with the current situation at the same time giving a secure perspective for projects in the coming months.
Okay, so let's have a look at other questions also here, and we are going into quite interesting different directions because of the recent events, because it was not only Corona that was moving us around, but also Mark was asking, and maybe Guoda, you want to give it a try, what specific anti-racist measures in terms of structural changes and activities are being discussed at the moment by a Commission and NA's SALTO network to address those inequalities?
Thanks a lot, Avaldas. Indeed, I think it's a very valid question, Mark, and it's very important not to forget that not only Corona is attacking our world in a way. And I think it's the strong, at least in my mind, the strong suit of European programs was always that they attached a lot of importance towards intercultural knowledge, towards being able to know others and interact with them as yourself, and all these values that we promote as, you know, carers of the agency, carers of the program, sorry, not only in terms of, you know, us as the agencies or us as the agencies and the Commission, but also in terms of what the applicants are approaching us with in terms of funding projects. And there has been, I think, a couple of waves, and this has been quite evident with the migrant crisis, that we were addressing similar topics. Let's say it has also been quite a number of occasions where we were saying that this is, of course, a very good opportunity also for the programs to contribute with the funding that we have. So I think a lot of power is definitely in the applicants' hands, and in terms of the agencies, I don't think that there is a single agency that would say, no, this is something that we don't fund if the application is good. So I think it's really we have to use this, and I think that's the expectation as well from the agencies and the Commission, that you really, as applicants, as activists, as youth workers, you use these tools that we have in terms of programs into different activities, and you really put these issues forward so that we can empower you in a way. Yeah, that would be sort of, but if any of my colleagues want to jump in as well, so that would be great.
Yes, thank you. Guoda. I'm still practicing, sorry. I actually wanted to ask Uroš, since there were from Susi Nicodemia coming in, a more concrete question, even if there is, or how much the programs actually are adjusting to campaigns or movements which are going on, if it's the Fridays for Futures before and now the Black Lives Matters. Is there any experience from your side looking at beneficiaries or how are programs used, Uroš, in Slovenia? If not, somebody else could also answer, of course.
Well, I would actually connect to what Guoda already mentioned, yeah, that programs are there with different approaches and different opportunities. So it's up to the applicants to decide what is the best solution in which, for example, action, how to apply it, and so on. We also need to know that the programs that are here are basically for 7 years, that they cannot change so quickly that we would also like, believe us, also national agencies would like to go faster sometimes, but maybe fast is also not all the time the best. But very concretely, we have a lot of projects that are applied and also, for example, supported for co-financing that are tackling the environmental topics. Yeah, so basically, especially with Solidarity Core program and Solidarity projects that do give the opportunity for smaller groups, for 5 non-organized young people from the local levels to do something. We could see this rise of the, let's say, also local orientated participation of young all around Slovenia. And that is very important, that not always very huge, big projects, for example, in Key Action 2 strategic partnerships are the ones that are the...
Vediamo se basta, se no intanto c'è la macchina qui.
Okay, I didn't understand, but probably it was something nice. So it is important that we also know that what youth chapter in the Erasmus Plus and also Solidarity Core program is so much focusing on, and I think that we are all living for that. It is we try to support grassroots, small groups, individuals to try to do something, and that is also basically addressing that everyone who wants to can participate. And even if he or she does not have the means, of course, Erasmus and Solidarity Core in general is going hand in hand with the developments that we are seeing. We are talking about green Erasmus. We are talking about lowering the emissions. We are talking about different bans for travel, for example, or additional days, if you want me to concretely say, for traveling, that they would be eligible if you travel with train and not by plane and so on. This is something that we are discussing now in this co-creative approach with Commission, Parliament and Member States for the future programs. Yeah. But as I also say all the time, it is so much important that we really, really support small grassroots organizations, and I'm really all the time emphasizing that we cannot only give really huge grants to big umbrella organizations, although they are important, don't get me wrong, yeah, they are also very important. So we need to try to find also this balance that also organizations on local level that are small can contribute a lot to all of these developments that also Susie is mentioning, or also what Guoda mentioned before with anti-racist approach, or Mark Taylor was writing in chat. So, but it is again up to the applicants. And one more important point that we didn't mention yet, we have a very good supportive approach established, especially in TCA and NET activities, so training cooperation activities, you probably know majority. That is something that we are very proud of. And I think we need to be, not only annex, but also the applicant beneficiaries, because with that, we are definitely building capacity of the sector, of the youth work and support for the youth policy. And with that, we are getting from small to big. The third thing that is for me very important is that we all, again, can be very proud of the development of social inclusion figures, if I call them like that. Yeah? We did a lot in the last years with inclusion of deprivileged, or if you want to say groups that are in risk, and that, so that is also one important part that we are trying, and we are also with that addressing a lot of needs that are raised in different occasions. Yeah? So I think that it goes, but of course it goes also. I am youth worker by heart. I did work in the youth level on the local level, and I know that we as youth workers on local level would like that it goes faster. But sometimes it simply doesn't go faster than it goes now. But I think it's good that you all the time remind us that we need to go and do much more.
Uroš, we also had this remark at the beginning that most probably those organizations that have been already working with sustainable approaches, they were also able to quicker react to the changing environment and also to offer the response. So thank you for encouraging us to initiate also even more on that. I see now there is Reet's reply, and then Uroš, you can come back to that. Thanks.
Okay, I just wanted to, I very much agree with my colleagues on when they say that the program and the national agencies already do a lot. I also think that we have the opportunity and also responsibility as national agencies and also as European Commission to communicate the programs with the values that they have been created in mind. And when we promote the deadlines or when we do trainings for youth workers or youth leaders, I think we do need to emphasize and prioritize human rights education, value-based youth work ethics, and how we can address also the societal problems, how we can foster youth participation. And I believe that we do that, but we should even more prioritize these not so current only waves that we can see also from the stress that the COVID has definitely built, also raising again, and also being the response from the programs, because we have already excellent tools. If we look at the solidarity projects at local level, how young people can themselves address the problems that they see, be it then ignorance or be it then racism, they can definitely raise awareness, they can interfere, and they can do that through youth participation projects also. I also think that volunteering, for example, is an excellent tool in our hands to raise awareness of local communities, of cultural diversity and equality. And so I believe that we have really important means in our hands, and we should, as national agencies, be very responsible with the communication strategies, with the training strategies, involving the trainers, communities and youth workers communities into more dialogue and into more active approach and active lead in this respect. And youth workers definitely need more education on human rights and also through the universities teaching.
Good. So before we have a little break, there is obviously a burning question, and most probably also for many of us, it's something we would like to have a clear response before we go into whisper groups. Flor, maybe you can help us in looking for some truth and answers to this particular aspect. So Marcus was asking, is there any kind of official communication documents, procedures, or recommendations that beneficiaries could refer to when approaching different NAs in transforming approved mobilities, for example, the KA1 mobility of staff from residential into online or blended formats? Flor, can you help us with that?
Yes, well, I don't have all the answers, unfortunately, even if you may hope that the Commission knows everything. It's not always the case, but of course, the reference, the official reference on which we have to base ourselves remains the program guide. So the program guide is still the first and foremost important reference, which, as we all know, doesn't necessarily specify what to do in COVID situation. in order to maybe shed some light as to some very simple principles that we're applying, you can go to our websites for the Erasmus website. So even for the core, the information is on the Erasmus website. Where you can find COVID-related specific information, which the Commission has put there. There is also some information on the European Youth Portal on COVID, but that is not necessarily linked so much to concrete project management questions. On all the rest, you have to raise your specific questions with your NAs, because there are as many scenarios as there may be projects. You have KA1, you have a youth exchange, or you have a strategic partnership going, or youth dialogue project, that a volunteer who gets stuck, or one who should go home and doesn't want to. I mean, there are many, many different scenarios. And what we have done is we have had a series of webinars with our national agency where we have discussed recurrent questions and try to give general guidelines. But of course, don't remember the situation is really exceptional, and there are very many different situations. They also vary per country, because some countries are far more hit than others. In many countries now, they have opened their borders today, actually. But this is also not the case in others. So this is why, for more specific information, I really recommend that you talk to your national agency and raise your questions. And they are very supportive. They are very well aware of the situation, and you can really trust them that they can help you turn the general principles that you find on the program in the guide, how we apply it in these days, how that will then apply to your specific situation. And it could be that maybe they don't have the question either. It's a time of uncertainty still, and especially what happens if there is a second wave of infections. These are uncertain times, and then of course the NA can ask us how to handle that, and we have a system we're in touch on a very regular basis to assist in those questions. So in short, your questions will always be answered.
Thanks a lot, Flora, for your a bit of answers at least. There's more questions coming in and also some comments. I think we have another hour left together, so in whisper groups and also another Q&A. But before we go in the second half of our event, we refresh a little bit. And for those of you who want to join, we have for the probably last time a little bit of yoga prepared. And for the ones who need to have another break, you just have it now. So you are invited to join. It's very easy. It's just yoga at the desk. So nothing really sweating or whatever. And we start with a comfortable seat so that you sit quite comfortable, and with our neck in a way. So put your hands a bit in the back, maybe in the back of your chair. And this time we put our left ear on the left, over the left shoulder. And then back to the center. And we do the same with the right ear over the right shoulder. Back to the center. You can do this in your own pace, of course. And the right one again to the right. And once more. Left over left. Back to the center, and the right over the right. Then to stretch a little bit, we take really, the fingers are stretched out and we keep it, the palm up to the sky and reach out to the sky and touch with our fingers above the head. And do the same going down. And this we do 3 times. Great. And one more thing, which we already did once with you, is the eagle. So you have your hands here and you put the right above, below the left, and try to do a little, whatever it's called, curling with your arms. Put it up as much as it's still comfortable for you. Don't forget to breathe. Hold it a while. And back. And you can also shake your shoulders a bit to feel good. And one more time is about left one below and the right one above, which is the harder for me. And we do the same. Inhale and exhale, hold a while. Great. Thanks a lot. And welcome back for the ones who had a proper break.
So now we want to start the whisper groups, and we will split into 6 whisper groups with our speakers being part of each of them. And there we would like to encourage you to start with a bit of a sharing of your own experience, how you were dealing as maybe one of the beneficiaries, and then also to discuss the questions on what support would you expect from the program in the nearest time. And the second question is, what elements should the new generation of programs include to foster the digital youth work? So these couple of questions we will give you also now in the chat. And you are invited to join the Padlet that we also created for the sessions. And in each of the sessions, you could also choose one who is making some notes, and just so everything has been documented and everything has been noted. And after 20 minutes, we will get back to the main room here, and we will continue with the discussion with our plenary speakers. So you will receive now very soon an invitation to join the breakout room. So please do accept it. And you will automatically get back to the main room. We will warn you 1 minute before the breakout rooms will start closing. So if you have any question, please write it right now in the chat. If not, we will be sending you out in the breakouts just in a moment.
Welcome back. So you have seen Evaldas and me also hopping a little bit in a few of the groups. And I know that there's still something to write on the Padlet too, but maybe at a certain point we could also share it, or you have another look at it. We would like to make another round at least with our guests about the outcomes. Here we can see it. Great. And we do it as we did before. We start with Reet, if that's fine for you. So regarding the questions about what people need as kind of support from the programs in nearest time, and also what elements should be part of the new generation. What are outcomes of your whisper group, Reet?
Well, I think we started with the trainers community, also a little bit, I think, vulnerable target group if you are in the situation where basically your livelihood is collapsing, and maybe the message or learning point here for the national agencies or for the programs is that in many places, online trainings did replace the face-to-face trainings, residential trainings. And we need to reflect why didn't it everywhere in a similar mode or in such a quick manner that in 3 months you are able to readjust, involve the trainers to readjust the training formats, and also reassessing the learning outcomes, for example, which, I mean, obviously the learning approaches cannot be the same that were planned for the residential trainings. So I think tight cooperation between the trainers community and national agencies would have been a good solution, and is still something that we need to look into and involve each other more so that we can harvest the learning more. Another aspect definitely was about the health and safety of the target groups while we are approaching to start the mobilities again, or and how do we, how much we know about the rules, or what kind of rules need to be in place, and where can we drive inspiration and also some important knowledge about that. So maybe also some online courses, short courses could be developed on that, and in-depth guidelines for the beneficiaries could be developed, certainly. And the third point maybe that we touched upon was flexibility that the beneficiaries are expecting from the national agencies when a lot of changes need to be made in the project level. And I was trying to reassure also that we do have this flexibility, but then we also need to look at each specific case and see what are the solutions at that level and what are the needs at that level. And I think we try as much as possible to be supportive and to be flexible, and also to understand that the circumstances are really difficult. So to support as much as possible to readjusting and yeah. But we didn't get to the second point. Unfortunately, time was limited.
So Manfred, you also had a discussion round. What have been your main takeaways from there?
Yeah, thank you very much. Davide was so nice to make some notes on the Padlet, so you can also read it. We had quite a lot of aspects. We didn't really make a distinction between the two questions, what is currently needed and what is needed in the future, because there was quite some overlaps. First of all, one thing was that we make sure that accessibility and inclusion is something that is really provided by the program now, very much also to make sure that inclusion projects and beneficiaries and target groups can access and use the program also in the current situation, but definitely also for the future program. It should also be maybe some clearer a coherent approach on how to use exceptional funds. We need definitely some clearer guidelines and instructions on how digital tools are funded. This has been a pending issue also for the last couple of weeks. I hope we will come up with joint solutions in the next days. The Commission made some proposals, and we have to see how this can be implemented now. There's a question of different approaches in different NAs handling certain questions. This is of course always a question, but maybe there it's also necessary that we know about these things, and then we can also of course discuss them. There was a proposal to come up with a specific platform that helps the project communities, the NGOs, beneficiaries to communicate in a more joint way, in a more common way. There was the question of who could set up such a platform, who could provide such a platform, how also it can be built on already existing proposals. Maybe that's also a question we can discuss with Flo later. And what Reet also mentioned came also up in our group, that we should have a close cooperation with trainers community, to have also maybe a pool of experienced facilitators for digital tools, so that we can share this experience and transfer this experience also to future projects and future needs within the network at the level of the Commission, future beneficiaries. I think that's it. The others can still complement me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Manfred, and also Guoda. In your group, I'm pretty sure that you had some insights, outcomes too. Could you please share?
Indeed. I think we had a really lovely discussion. I think a couple of things also were already what my colleagues talked about were mentioned in our group, but maybe two main things that I would add is one is that there is a need of figuring out of what is quality activities online and how do they still continue with the same mentality and values that we have in our residential activities. And for that, I think there is and what also my colleague said is that there is a need to experiment a bit, and there is a need to kind of be in the gray zone and push the boundaries a bit. And for a lot of these things, the programs can cater, maybe not for everything. And here I think is also where we need to be creative and put our minds together. And I think the other big thing that we were also talking about is how do we sort of use this momentum to also make sure that our field or the colleagues in the field have the necessary skill set or are moving a bit more closer towards using a wide variety of ranges and attracting or working with their target groups as well and complementing their work through digital means or through smart means if we want to use a bigger boundary. So I think that there's a variety of things we can do under that in terms of also, you know, having trainings or potentially other things that we can cater as national agencies even. Yeah, so thanks.
Uroš, anything to add from your group?
Yes, I will try to, although it was really a lot said already. Just to follow what also Manfred said, what is important for people that were participating here and probably for organization participants, applicants, that there is an open communication with MAs, yes, that MAs are trying and do the best to inform applicants and beneficiaries. And yeah, we have different approaches also in the national agency network, but that is something that still can be done probably more. Yeah, although it's also true that sometimes we are waiting for some clarification and that it takes also time. But maybe to focus more for the future, there were a lot of things said. I think that one is important, that we still want to somehow safeguard the physical mobility projects. Yeah, having said that, we still think that it could be also quite a lot to search and use the innovative methods and digital tools to basically allow greater interaction between young people. So actually to also do, let's say, digital youth work with blended mobilities or so on. And that needs to be checked basically action by action. Yeah, probably quite a lot of things can be done in strategic partnerships and maybe in virtual exchanges a little bit less, if I say it very bluntly. Yes. So it needs to be researched and seen. And what we already said, I think that Guoda and also some of others, that we still need to understand that we need to invest a lot of time, energy, and also funds to get us ready to do the digital youth work. Having said that, it is not just transforming one activity to online and that is digital youth work. Yeah. We need to understand that methodology of youth work, non-formal learning and education is much different than studying online. Yeah. So that means that we need to build the capacity of applicants, beneficiaries, not also forgetting social inclusion. Yeah. We have cases, we cannot forget that also social inclusion and digital youth work can be socially excluding for some groups that are not equipped maybe with computers, maybe with internet connection, and we think that that is clear. It's not. There are a few, and not a few, quite a lot. Yeah. And one more thing, I think that was really nicely said by one of colleagues in the breakout room, that we also need more understanding from NAs, that beneficiaries will need to experiment with transforming to online, and this means that some of the money will be spent on failures. And my comment here was that yes, Youth in Action is also there, that we can actually support failures, but don't get me wrong, not in a bad way, but not to forget that we can experiment and do things, and that not everything is perfect from the beginning. Yeah. So that is also something that we maybe need to discuss for the future programs, that we are not only supporting big professional projects, but also small ones where we can do failures, and that's not wrong.
Thanks, Uroš, for sharing from your group. And Flor, is there something to add from your WISPER group?
Yes, perhaps there is still some things that were not mentioned so clearly. In our group, the discussion very much focused not so much on going online, because as people stated, maybe the obvious, going online, getting into Zoom is not that difficult. It is really the quality of how you do learning online, which is a totally different story. And then, of course, we need to develop the methodologies. I think this has been said, that the know-how on how best to do it is still to be fleshed out further, but also in how to share this information, because we had a discussion on what kind of tools, would we need a toolkit or compendium or list of good practices, or just having access to others so we can talk about it and learn from each other. So there are many different ways in which we can offer the information. And I think what is important is not to complicate things, because if people want to learn and to take something home, as somebody said, adding another layer of guidance or documents to read before you apply for a project is not what people are after. So there is a real challenge in also designing the information in an attractive way. And I think we can see the example on our left on our screen in how that can be done, is in using visuals, attractive communication methods that can help also share this information. And then we had a discussion on the tools and infrastructure, which is another question, because do we want to rely on commercial tools? Not everybody has the same access to tools, or sometimes they don't work. There was a question raised, shouldn't we have something more common together, so that for the program, so that we do not have to rely on external tools and infrastructure. And then there was a different point being mentioned that hasn't been come up before, was a code of conduct, because in some cases the projects were changed, and of course we had given a lot of flexibility to adapt to the needs. But it can then also happen that the needs are not mutual, so that one organization in the project wants to adapt it one way, and that is not necessarily the same understanding on the other side of the project cooperation. And that, of course, is also something to consider, that in case there is adaptation or improvisation, that it should be done in a way that is constructive and harmonious to a certain extent.
We also had a sixth group, which was not here on the panel discussion, but maybe we would like to hear from them also. Jutta Kivimäki from Finnish National Agency, who was helping us out in facilitating the discussion. Jutta, is there something to add on from your round of discussion?
Hi. I think almost everything was said. We were talking a lot about the safety and also about the inclusion part or exclusion part, how Uroš was also getting it. So I I think that everything has already been said in different words, so thank you.
Thank you, Jutta. Sabrina, we are almost at the finish. Should we hear one last words from each of the speakers?
That would be nice. So is there any last thing you would like to share with our participants? Then you have kind of half a minute, maybe 2 sentences you're able to share still before we summarize. Reet or Manfred.
I was just jumping. Yeah, thank you very much. We discussed that is very valuable to have this exchange very much. And I posted in the chat still the link to the ongoing Ray research on the impact of the crisis and how we go about it. And so I really invite you to take part into this research, because I think we also need a good basis for the further discussions. Thanks.
Yeah, I would also encourage the trainers community here, the youth workers community, project beneficiaries, so whoever you are, to even if you feel that you are not maybe all that involved in crisis management of the programs, and you are involved in the programs and projects, if you're missing something, just try to give a call or contact your national agency and try to propose some changes, maybe support with your know-how and feedback how national agencies could be really more supportive or more flexible. I think this still needs to be said, that even if they don't have maybe the energy, or it's not in the priority list to contact you, you still should do it and propose your feedback and also some constructive suggestions on how to better coexist and co-create.
Thanks, Reet. Guoda?
Yeah, I think I was on the same line as Reet a bit, that you can always reach out to DNAs. We might be swamped also in other things, but that doesn't mean that we will not get back to you at some point. So that's also something to have in mind. And I mean, I think that there is always possibilities to do a lot of things through the programs. And yeah, and I think that the general expectation is really that the applicants will push the boundaries in their applications with new ideas and with different topics that they tackle coming from their respective communities, because no one else is going to do it. DNA is not going to go into your target group and write a project proposal. So I think that we're really looking forward to having these interesting, new, creative approaches and seeing how they fit into the programs that we manage, so that we could also fund them and push the youth work sector for better preparedness and being able to cope with different challenges, COVID being one of them. But there is a lot of things that are happening in spite of COVID, and that I think that's where also the programs can really help.
Thank you. Any quick last message from your side, Uroš?
Yes, that we don't have all the answers, and that is also okay. Yeah, and that we go step by step, and maybe sometimes step by step is also to go one step back. We know a lot of research on physical mobilities and what the impacts are on individual, organization, and the sector. I think it's okay that we go on with digital youth work even more, but step by step. Having that in mind also, that some organizations should not feel threatened because they are maybe not there yet, and that is also okay. Yeah, and some NAs are not there yet, and that is also okay, although we need to get there quickly. I do agree. Yeah, so I think that this talking and listening to each other and hearing each other is very, very useful. I would like it more, not only on digital youth work, if I'm honest, maybe also on the youth work and the values of the youth work and what it means for all of us. And nevertheless, also not to forget that we are only 10% of budget of Erasmus Plus. Yeah? So maybe these talks could also be beneficial for formal education and institution and so on, if I'm a little bit now challenging for also some others that are not here yet. Yeah? That would be, I mean, youth sector cannot always be the first in line for everything, although it always is. And I think we need to be very proud on that. Yeah.
Thanks, Uroš. And Flor, is there anything you would like to share with the
Yes,
audience?
I mean, in a different life before COVID started, we were already proposing to look into innovation in youth work. And our plans was to discuss this with the member states in the youth work agenda, and these discussions are ongoing. There is also the Council of Europe and our partnership involved in that. And we're in a different, all of a sudden, in a different dimension here. And we have done a lot of little learning at project level, individual level, maybe in meetings like these. But the challenge now is to turn this little learning, which happens all across Europe in different corners and in different ways, is to uplift that somehow to a big learning, that that this small learning experiences are somehow put together, put in a shaker, and coming out as a result would be some big learning and some new lessons that will benefit the whole of the youth sector. That is really my hope, that that will happen in the coming months.
So I will try to summarize all of these couple of hours that we had of our quite open exchange, and I would like to thank you all speakers and participants. We still have over 70 of those here with us, and we have started our discussion with asking ourselves also what is really needed, whether we should only talk about digital solutions for the changing environment. And we have seen that in the last months, the network of national agencies became stronger, and that helped also to cope and find these new strategies in absolutely untouched waters. That also brought a new creativity of beneficiaries, which was supported by the NAs. And this is also something that we see right now is expected, that this flexibility from the side of NAs still stays there, because nobody can really say how even the closest future will look like. So there has been also noticed that there have been some projects that take the virus and response to it already as a topic, because there was one of the application rounds, and that mainly NAs have been dealing with two sorts of questions, with operational ones, what to do now, and also strategic ones that need really to be answered also in the bigger round, and might take also a bit longer time to find the best way how to deal with it. And we also hear voices that we shouldn't talk only about digitalizing, but we are, because at some points we're still not there, and we still need to build the needed capacities for taking this step. We also tried to open the discussion a bit broader for other topics that are emerging right now, and we have seen that projects are absolutely encouraged on the grassroots level to apply with those emerging topics and to address them in responding to any of that, whether it's Black Lives Matters, whether it's a COVID response, or maybe also social inclusion in digitalization. And when it comes to ways or recommendations, what should we maybe take out of all of these discussions is to still have health and safety of participants, of beneficiaries in the first place. But here we might also need some more concrete guidelines for beneficiaries, how to deal with that and how to ensure this. Then there is also some flexibility expected from beneficiaries of the NAs. Accessibility and inclusion should be especially now provided when it comes to implementing and also planning different activities. Clear guidelines on how digital tools are funded is for sure something that is already on the agenda, but there is a very clear need for that coming from the community. And there was also an idea of maybe creating a central platform or a toolkit or a compendium, whatever it is, but obvious it is that we need a way to share experiences and practices, and not only maybe on the level of NAs, but also maybe on the level of beneficiaries for at all getting to the level of preparing an application. And then close cooperation with trainers and beneficiaries is something that could maybe be even improved in the future. And in all of this, particularly when we talk about digital or smart youth work activities, we need to ask ourselves, how do we ensure the quality of those? And by doing this, we need to keep our values that we would have in any case in any of our also residential offline activities, or call it however, but this is the core of the work we do. And we need time for experimenting. We need also courage for that. We need more research. We need to invest more for capacity building of beneficiaries. And we need to keep social inclusion always in mind. We also had the previous lab on that, and we saw what could be the helpful guidelines for not to lose it from our eyesight, and also to develop methodologies and ways to share them so we can also always be ready to respond to whatever the future will hold for us. So I hope this gives you a bit of a sum up of all of the different keywords and aspects that have been mentioned today. And there is also ways how we can share those and keep staying in touch and in discussion, even without being here online now on Zoom. Sabrina.
Exactly. Thanks also from my side to all of you. Before I tell you a little bit about how to stay in contact, I would like to know, how did you like this session today? Therefore, I asked Ricardo to share again the Mentimeter with us. So please give us some feedback going on menti.com using the code 460698. And here on the first slide, we ask you, how did you like it in general, the content today and the moderation? We have some other slides for you prepared, which are probably really useful for us, since, as you know, this is actually also a kind of experiment of transforming a very familiar conference format as it was planned into something different, which is also something we would like, and we definitely do that already, learn from it a lot. And you can help us, of course, in defining what was your perspective in that. So we see we are in the quite second part of the 5, so around 4, the content 3.7. There are still some people missing, I would say. We wait a little moment longer if this is changing again. I think it's kind of on this point, around 4. Thanks a lot. The second one is actually about what are you taking out today. So what was actually an aha moment actually for you today, or some knowledge, something you haven't expected, or links? Exactly, people were sharing a lot in the chat, which I think there is already a lot out there. Just do it. Blended learning, knowledge, hope, also nice. We are on the right track. Some people write, something is still missing also. Yeah, this is why we talk about it. I think digital efforts, information, people took out more flexibility, information in general, but also flexibility is needed, similarities are out there, new ideas, even contacts are taken out, quite some knowledge, as said. Ideas again, peer learning is the key. I think it's also something we thought. So today was a bit different lab of sharing in whispering groups. Unknown, co-create, willingness is something which is people taking out, build real trust. Very nice. Wait a bit longer, so please finish what you would like to put in. Various adventure, but also support is mentioned. It's a good start. It's mentioned physical activities is something people taking out. We do not have all answers, also something exactly. Great. And one last thing, as I said, any feedback is very welcome here in order to continue thinking about what is actually needed in these kind of times, but then also maybe in others where it could be mixed or different. Or so please share any feedback you have regarding this session today, the lab number 4. Thanks to the other organizers, moderators. Thank you to you. I think you did a lot today. Great, well done. Great session and engagement with participants. I'm also very happy that we had so open speakers being also open to discuss close with you in groups, more breakout groups, exactly, yeah, it's needed. Excellent moderation, thanks a lot. Thanks for the different voices. This is also what we thought, since we know that Europe is quite diverse out there, also in terms of national agencies and things like that. Maybe more attractive introduction round of the speakers and shorten the talks. Okay, take this into account. More breakout groups needed again. Thanks, a lot of thanks. Please share all the materials with all NAs and check if there are, yeah, reading it. Okay, I'm not sure if this is probably possible, but you talked about the network, which is stronger in these times. So probably you will share good practices, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if you are also checking if people read things. Yeah, altogether we will continue for the next projects. I'm pretty sure that's just first steps we are doing here with that. Thanks a lot. We take it into account, even if I haven't reading out everything here loudly. And there is another link I would like to share with you, which is our open feedback box from MOVIT. And I have to copy this, and some people of you already know it. I send it to you in the chat. Maybe Ricarda, if you can also share it, it's open for you for any kind of feedback you have and you couldn't share here, or even sharing practices on certain things. You can just find your column, and if there's anything else needed, just let us know. We can still create a new one, and that's a way for you to share still. And there's another platform for you to share, and I saw so many articles and platforms where sharing is already going on today in the chat, plus survey links and all that. And it would be really great if you would also share this in our Facebook group with people, so that we have the chance to find it somewhere, at least in the moment. So Ricarda was already sharing the Facebook group. Some of you are already in. It's still some way up for being active. So don't be shy in sharing something which is connected to our topic. Thanks a lot.
So we see that this is one of the topics that is still ongoing, and we see that there is also a huge openness on the side of those who are actually making decisions and being in this black box of all of the new developments and the new generation of the program, but also of the one that is ongoing. So use the chance and join the discussions on our Facebook group. And there is still one more possibility for you to be part of the MOVIT event. And as you see, we are today in our last fourth digital youth mobility lab. And just in 2 days, so on Wednesday at 2 o'clock, we meet on Facebook Live, which is a bit of a difference, maybe for those who are used now to our Zoom meetings. So we will be using two different ways to access the discussion. So the first panel discussion on foreseeing the future of digital youth mobility and youth work in 2030 will be held on Facebook Live of Jugend für Europa. So keep an eye on Facebook group also, and also on Jugend für Europa Facebook site on Facebook. We will share the link there, and you will have the chance to enjoy maybe a bit nicer live stream, because we have something very special prepared for you over there. And after that hour, around 3 o'clock, we will be opening breakout rooms where in workshops you will have the chance, similarly like today, to share your own vision for 2030. And let's hope that any kind of viruses will be out of question or out of topic, and we will be able to really think on what future has in it for us, and for us as actors and stakeholders of the youth field, and particularly when it comes to youth mobility. So join us on 17th of June, this Wednesday, 2 o'clock on Facebook Live, and later on Zoom. Just start with Facebook, and we will give you all the needed links and information how you can join the discussions. So I would like to thank Guoda, Uroš, Reet, Manfred, Flor, for being here with us today, and also all of you, dear participants. And let's see for the final closing just in a couple of days. It was a pleasure. Ricardo.